Okay. So the purpose of tonight's event is it's brought to you by the Rural Australians for Refugees Bendigo. My name's Christine Cummins and I'm one of the members of this dynamic little volunteer advocacy group. And our purpose is to raise awareness of issues relating to refugees and people seeking asylum. We advocate for change in government policy and we strive for a welcoming and inclusive community. And on this World Refugee Day, we pay respects to the diverse range of people from all ethnicities who've contributed to our nation. And I'm delighted to be chairing this panel discussion this evening because it's a positive story of inspiration, hope and success. We're going to hear about the incredible life-changing work achieved by Talent Beyond Boundaries, or TBB as it's known, and Refugee Talent Australia. TBB works in refugee communities, gathering information on skills, qualifications and experience. And this data is then made available in an anonymous form to potential employers around the world. And when an employer expresses interest in a candidate's skills, TBB assists the candidate through a remote recruitment process, including the interviews and supervised skills validation. When employers offer a job to a candidate, TBB and Refugee Talent Australia assist in the visa applications and migration and settlement process. And so tonight we're going to hear exactly how that all unfolds. We have three very special guests on the panel who are generously giving their time and sharing their stories. One is the co-founder of TBB, another an employer going through the recruitment process, and finally the skilled candidate offered the employment and a pathway to a safe new life, and that is our very special guest Ali Maqsood. So before we're going to go into a bit of a introduction to each of those panelists and a bit of a discussion, I'd like to just show a brief video on TBB.
From the Lebanese University in Tripoli, Lebanon. I am fluent in 3 languages, Arabic, French and English.
I graduated in 2008 from Damascus University as a software engineer.
And then I continued my master, but unfortunately I couldn't continue it because of war.
As a Syrian living in Lebanon, it's really very hard. You don't have a residence permit. You can't work legally.
Most people will dream of owning a car or a house or becoming married or fathering children someday. Over the course of the last 25 years, I've kind of trained myself not to dream and not to have these high expectations.
We're always facing hiring challenges.
We have a high benchmark for the people that we want to bring into Iris.
Hiring is very challenging for us. The competition for talent is intense. We often require quite specialised skill sets which are restricted in the market.
I guess what we were hoping for was to resolve our labour shortage, but also contribute to that humanitarian aspect as well.
We're in a necessity to find pockets of unidentified talent that we can get access to.
And you're likely to find those, as we did, through Talent Beyond Boundaries.
Honestly, Talent Beyond Boundaries stood by me all the way through it.
On 23/2/2019, I got my visa.
When I told my wife, she told me, you're just kidding me.
I can't describe the feeling because it's really very emotional to describe it. You can't, there are no words.
The minute I set foot on that plane, I actually dared to start dreaming again.
It was a turning point in my life. It was like a party.
TBB had done a selection process and provided us with a pool of high quality candidates.
The best things that have come out of employing Ali is really achieving a skilled employee who's come to us already very competent.
The process that is supported by Talent Beyond Boundaries makes it easy. They normalise recruitment of high quality talent wherever it is so that it is the same as hiring domestically.
It's critical for Australia's ongoing competitiveness for us to not just look within our local pool, to lift our eyes up and identify talented people living elsewhere and under constraints.
There is a lot of talented people. They are not just talented, they need to start a new life.
Either they are doctors, nurses, engineers. Most of them are graduated people and they are living as refugees. They have skills. They really have skills.
What I'd say to other employers, it's really no more difficult than employing someone locally.
Now I can actually think for the future. I can establish a career. I actually have goals for the next 2 and 3 years, and I never had that in my life.
I started learning piano, I started learning video editing. It's changed totally.
I felt I had a purpose now. I had a purpose other than just surviving.
I'm working in awesome company. I'm living in beautiful city. All my career has changed. I started to build new one.
I am extremely lucky to be here today. Not everyone gets this chance. And honestly, there should be more NGOs like TBB and more employers who are willing to offer people like me a chance to be human.
I love that final little line there. There should be more chance to be treated as human. So that is a beautiful little summary, and it allows me to now do some introductions. The very first speaker we're going to have to kick us off tonight is John Cameron. John Cameron is one of the pioneers of electronic trading. He was a key member of the team that first automated the trading floor of the Australian Securities Exchange, one of the first in the world. He has designed and developed information systems for major financial institutions in the United Kingdom, France, the United States, and Australia. In 1997, John created what was to become the world's leading FIX solution. Is that what we say? Cameron FIX? Using the proceeds of the sale of Cameron Systems to Orc Software in 2006, John established the Cameron Foundation to focus on philanthropy. And this eventually led to John co-founding Talent Beyond Boundaries as a global response to the current refugee crisis. He's also designed and co-founded Pathway Club, which provides an innovative financial solution supporting skilled refugees into new lives. Our next speaker this evening is Peter Crowhurst. Peter Crowhurst was born in the United Kingdom and is now an Australian citizen. He holds a national certificate in electronic engineering from the UK, an undergrad degree in applied physics from Monash University, and a second degree in mathematics, because one wasn't enough, from Charles Sturt University. He's an Australian Mathematical Sciences Institute Scholarship recipient. He has chaired and presented the IEEE conferences at Cambridge in the UK in 2013 and 15. He's an inventor and co-inventor to 15 patents. He's worked in Germany, South Africa, United Kingdom, New Zealand, the Antarctic, and now lives permanently in Australia. Peter's held a number of leadership positions of small research groups and is now the general manager of a group of companies, in particular, ceramic oxide fabricators and Australian Oxitol Systems. Ceramic oxide fabricators manufactures world-leading high-temperature oxygen sensors for the heat treatment market. And then we have Mr. Ali Maqsood. Ali Maqsood was born and raised in Syria, where he studied mechanical engineering. As the conflict in Syria escalated, Ali was forced to flee and seek asylum in Lebanon in 2017. At the time, his wife Walla was 5 months pregnant with their son, and Ali went ahead to seek safety and a new life for his family. He was told about Talent Beyond Boundaries when he arrived in Lebanon and registered with them, and then didn't give it much thought until about 2 years later when he received a call in 2019. They were offering a job interview for a position in Australia. And he was interviewed by Peter and offered the position at Ceramic Oxide Fabricators. Unfortunately, the global pandemic delayed the process until Ali and his family were eventually safely flown to Australia and settled here in Bendigo in March this year. And it's absolutely wonderful to see your face here, Ali, and for you to be willing to share your story. So it's really great. But I might just kick off with John and ask you a little bit about, if you don't mind, sharing, firstly, I think your motivation for co-founding TBB. Where did the idea and the drive come from, John?
I came from business. Obviously I'm a humanitarian, and I imagine everyone on this call is, but this is the idea for Talent Beyond Boundaries really came out of business, a business driver. I mean, I guess back in 2016, I was like many other business people, like Peter and others on this call perhaps. I felt sorry for refugees and I'd donate money to help them out, but I never really considered them as a useful resource. And looking back, I don't know why not. When a company fails, I used to reach out to former employees of that company to see if there was any good talent that had come on offer with the failure of the company. And I found some of my best employees that way. So why should it be any different when a whole economy fails, like Syria, due to conflict or whatever reason? There's this huge pool of talent that suddenly becomes available. I don't know. I think the refugee label doesn't help much. And I guess in my case, I pigeonholed all refugees as just charity cases. Anyway, all my preconceptions were challenged when I attended a dinner for a refugee called Bassam, who Amnesty International, one of the charities we had supported, brought out from the Middle East. And just like Ali, he just blew me away. He spoke good English, he was smart, he was courageous, he was very well educated. And to my kind of naive worldview, I thought, you are a refugee? How many are like you out there, you know? And I was also intrigued that Amnesty had been able to fly them out to Australia to talk to us. Why couldn't I fly talented refugees out here to work for me? That's the idea that was behind it. And I decided to try and see what stopped me. And as a philanthropist, it was strange because by that time I was in philanthropy. And as a philanthropist, when you come across something like that, you think, well, you know, there's nothing new in this world, right? Somebody must be doing this. Somebody's out there helping refugees with skills, use those skills to get themselves out. And I thought, well, I'll find out, somebody's doing it, I'll find out who's doing it, and I'll give them some money because that's what I am. I'm a philanthropist. And I did that, and I discovered that people had talked about it, but no one was actually doing it, which was crazy. So I thought I'd have a crack. And in the process of that, I met my co-founders in Washington, DC, the Cohens, Bruce and Mary Louise, who'd had the same kind of eureka moment and frustration that nobody was doing this really quite obvious initiative. And we joined forces under the banner of Talent Beyond Boundaries.
I love your honesty about how you just had a label, refugee, and you just sort of put everyone under that as I guess, you know, not quite equal, maybe in some way.
Yeah, and I probably didn't think of it that way, defending myself. But we still encounter people like that, and being of an elevated age like I am, I occasionally go to doctors and have to go, and I was at a medical thing, and I was being treated by a doctor who was obviously a very experienced guy, and he was asking me what I did, and I told him, and he said, but refugees don't have any skills, do they? And you know, this was an educated, man, a well-educated person, but I don't know, it's just something. So in some ways, I don't think I was that unusual. I don't think it didn't come from a bad place. It's just I don't know, it's stupid now looking back on it. But I think a lot of people are in that place now. And that's part of what we have to do. And it's amazing when you meet people like Peter, who, you know, are a lot more enlightened than I was back then. And really, you know, look and, you know, has taken advantage of what Talent Beyond Boundaries has to offer.
But I think that, you know, a lot of the people on screen here today were very consciously aware of labels. In fact, when we talk about refugee, we often say people from refugee background for that very reason, that to call someone a refugee is often that very stigmatizing label. So we just sort of make it a long sentence, but it gives a little bit more dignity. And
it's a label, and you know what labels do? They strip away your identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of a sudden, that's what you are, and in fact, that's not what you are. That's something that happened to you, but it's not who you are. Who you are is all your experience and everything that makes you a person. So labels are bad things, really. I mean, they help us organize the world, and especially this chaotic world we're all living in now. Labels make it convenient, but we've really got to look past those labels. And the refugee label definitely doesn't, I'm sure it didn't do Ali any favors. It didn't do any of our refugees any favors. And it's all about looking past those labels.
Yeah. So I'm curious, John, about the obstacles. Now, the first things to pop into your head are what would they be, the biggest obstacles that you had to sort of navigate around when you were first starting off?
Well, the first one, and it relates to the labels, the first one is that until Talent Beyond Boundaries came along, people like Ali were invisible. Certainly Ali's name was probably on, you know, the UNHCR. I don't know if you were registered with UNHCR, Ali, you were probably on the UNHCR database somewhere. But that's just saying this person is a refugee. There was nothing about Ali, the person, with the quality. So I think the first thing that Talent Beyond Boundaries did, the first obstacle was that refugee skills weren't visible. So they're not visible. You're not going to get anybody, you're not going to get employers interested in it. So the first obstacle which TBB tackled, and we were the first to do this, was to actually ask refugees, who are you? You know, what are your skills? What are your qualifications? What is your experience? And to take that information, and then from that we could construct a CV. So making them visible was the first obstacle. The second obstacle, which was a potential obstacle, and a lot of people said, oh, employers won't be interested, it's too hard, international hiring, you know, they won't be interested. Well, it turns out they were. So the second obstacle was to actually reach out to businesses and say, well, you know, are you having trouble finding, do you have skills gaps that you can't fill locally? If you do, have you considered international hiring? A lot of employers were already doing international hiring. Well, then we say, well, what about hiring from this talent pool? And anyway, that was a potential obstacle, which actually turned out not to be an obstacle at all, because employers, particularly now, actually more than ever with skills, I mean, the skills shortages around the world are, you know, it's a serious problem. So that wasn't an obstacle. But the other obstacle, of course, is visa pathways and governments and so on. And, you know, and so we had to tackle that. But when you present, again, you're going to governments. And to be honest, the minister who gave us here in Australia our first pilot was Peter Dutton. And Peter Dutton is not known for, you know, in the refugee space, a lot of people are not fans of Peter Dutton. But Peter Dutton, it could see, even from his worldview, which it may not be my worldview or your worldview, he could see the pure financial advantage of this. This was just economics, never mind the humanitarian side. The fact that Peter's running a business, needs talent. Ali's got that talent. What's the problem here, right? Let's join the dots. And if Peter's will has done after interviewing Ali and decided that Ali is the right person for the job, you know, and Peter Dutton saw that. And it's similarly very conservative government, or one might say quite anti-refugee, anti-illegal migration government in the UK. Same thing. They saw that financial and economic argument. On the other side of politics, on the other hand, in Canada with Justin Trudeau and a very liberal government, and Canada's got a very proud tradition of supporting refugees, they loved it too. So it's quite a rare model. So the barriers were there, because it had this strong model which really crossed politics from, you know, the liberal left to the conservative right. You could actually, it was a valuable proposition across the political divide. That barrier, that barrier was removed too. The problem of how do you get people there? How do you get the visas? Now we had some work to do, because a normal skilled visa, as it was when we started, a lot of refugees can't even get to first base. You know, well, first thing you have to do to apply to a visa, give us a copy of your current passport. Well, I haven't got a current passport, it's expired, right? And getting it renewed in Syria is a problem. Or give us the following documentation of your qualifications or something. Well, they've left the country, they've fled the country with the shirts on their back. They don't actually have some of the documentation. But all we said to the likes of Peter Dutton, for example, we say, we're not asking you to lower the barriers here. We're not asking you to lower the level of competence. We're just asking you to acknowledge the fact that these people are on an unusual situation where they may have a few documents. Let's find ways around that. And if you can find ways around that, guess what? You just got a whole bunch of talent that was previously unavailable to you. And that appealed, that argument appeals across the political divide and allowed us to remove that one remaining barrier, which is the barrier of visa pathways.
So there were a new allocation of visas supplied. Is that right, John? So they were actually a unique type of visa. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And Australia's kind of led the world in that space, and we've had some really great two amazing women who work for TBB, Steph Cousins and Marina Brizar. Both did Churchill Fellows. If you know Churchill Fellows, it's a big deal, very competitive, and they both done Churchill Fellowships in this space. And they helped the Department of Home Affairs here in Australia come up with this, what we now have now. And it was a very collaborative initiative, but it was really driven by those ideas that came from those two Churchill Fellowships. And those Churchill Fellowships looked at skilled pathways around the world. And so Australia is actually leading in that space, and we should be very proud of that. So now you're right, we do have, this is our second pilot. We got our first pilot from Peter Dutton, then we got another pilot based on the success of the first pilot. We got this second pilot, which is all around this new visa pathway that's been co-designed by the Department of Home Affairs and Talent Beyond Boundaries.
And so what's the allocation? Because there's a certain number allocated, is that right?
Well, at the moment we're full, 200, okay. and we've hit but that's a great position to be in, because it's still a pilot, and they wanted to see, does this work? And so now we're just gonna, we can't, at this moment, we're not really taking any more applications from employers, but we want to keep employers warm, because this is really valuable, and Australia is leading the world. So at the end of sometime next year, when the pilot will be judged, and if the change of government is going to be fine, it's not going to be any problem. We've got bipartisan support for what we're doing. We will then go from pilot stage to actually making a much bigger program. And so employers are on this call, for example, who are interested in hiring, I don't want to put you off. I just want to say that if you come to us today, we probably can't, we couldn't deliver an hourly to you. I mean, Peter got in early and he was one of the lucky ones. We can't deliver an hourly to you tomorrow, but probably next year we can. And with the new, a new much larger pilot.
It's
it won't be
fabulous.
a pilot actually. It'll be a much more not beyond a pilot.
That's great. It's just such a success story. It's unbelievable. I'm really interested in the joint relationship with Refugee Talent as well. But I feel that I want to go firstly, I think, to Peter. Just to Peter, if you don't mind sharing from the employer's point of view, you're the general manager of a company that's looking for skilled professional work, and do you mind sharing how you came across how it came to be, basically? Well, that you got this wonderful new employee into your organisation, but tell us a little bit about the journey.
Well, I have looked at a lot of CVs. And I have come to the conclusion that I don't know how to read CVs because I have seen amazing transcripts and it hasn't panned out like that. So I've come to the conclusion that whilst you might have RoboCop on paper, it really translates to that. So for me, employing someone locally versus employing someone from overseas, it's a risk factor on both accounts. And having worked in Africa and seen people that speak many languages of a different race and creed and colour with tremendous skills and all over the world, really, I came to understand that, in fact, it doesn't matter what colour, shape or, alien race you come from. What really matters is where your heart is, can you work with people, and do you have the skill sets? So that really prompted me to have a look at what I needed to do to address the business case position. And it's interesting because as soon as you're responsible for outcomes, any ideologies around sexism go out the window, colour, anything at all. You just want the answer and please let it be right. So I started exploring the idea. I Googled, and I'm not quite sure how we got to Talent Beyond Borders or boundaries, but I can tell you it wasn't clear whether I was interviewing them or they were interviewing me. I felt very much scrutinized and vetted, and I'm pleased to say I passed the interview. So we went through Google, we made a connection. John and his team came up and I was thrilled. And I think John even saw my puppy at the time that slept under my desk. And it's a family business, and it sounds, I don't want to sound glib to say this, but Talent Beyond Borders kept me in the loop, and I was prepared to wait for what I saw in the interview. I thought, I can't ask this person technical questions because no one ever gets them right anyway, and he's a million miles away. So I'm not going to bore him with my stupid questions. So after I passed the interview with John and his team, I was allowed to be interviewed or interview Ali. And what I saw was a skilled person with a heart that would fit very nicely into the team. And we took it from there. COVID, I thought, I hope he hasn't changed his mind. And he stuck with us. And now we've got him in the team, and I don't want to let him go. So I hope that sort of sums it up. But
Peter, in our conversation that we've had, it struck me that you really put a lot of emphasis on the importance of relationship and relationship within the organisation that you head. And I just wondered if you'd like to share a little bit about of just the importance of that for you and bringing someone into the team. What that means with your business?
Thank you. I'd love to. What I have found with all of the projects I've worked on, they haven't failed because we haven't had the technical competencies. They haven't failed because we've not had all the money at the start of the project. They haven't failed for a whole variety of reasons that you think that they should fail. They've fallen apart because of relationships. You can build almost anything on almost nothing with everyone in the right heart space working together as a team and in a much faster timescale. So we've done a number of things with the company, right from the directors. We've done courses in non-violent communication. We've done weekend workshops. So as it happens, I report to an all-female board of directors, so I can assure you my communication skills, if they're not polished now, they soon will be. And we've sort of moved over the last 6 or 7 years, we've moved the style of interactions with the staff to be more heart-centered. So I haven't concerned myself with the wage bill. It sounds insane, but actually what I've concerned myself with is the overall joy of the team members and the overall cherished component of them being a part of the team. And, you know, what was a largely unsatisfied group of people when I joined the company is now really formed into, I almost want to cry when I say that without sounding stupid, a beautiful team of caring people that are willing to share and work together. And, you know, it's been really tremendous. So does that answer your question?
That's a beautiful response. Thank you, Peter. And I can well and truly see why you passed the test from John and TBB. I can fully understand why they'd want you on board. Oh, Eve, we've got someone in there. Hang on a minute. Remove.
Yeah.
I think I've removed that sound. Okay. All right.
I've just muted everybody, but I'm not. I think we have been hacked. I've been removing.
Yeah, I've just removed somebody.
And I've removed some people too. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're under control. So Ali, I think we might move to you. Is that okay? Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about your experience? Ali, you spent 4 years in Lebanon. So that was a long waiting for a future. And
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing your experience of the whole recruitment process.
Of course. First, good evening, everyone. And I want to say, when Kristen called me to speak about my experience with Talent Beyond Boundary, I directly accept, because I want to speak about Talent Beyond Boundary, what they did for refugees, also about the Australian and Canadian, England governments, because they support this organization, and the companies like my company, Ceramic Oxide Fabricator, which sponsored the refugees family. By this way, like what you said, because of war in my country, I fled from Syria in 2017, and my wife was pregnant in the 5th month. So I listened about Talent Beyond Boundary from one of my friends. It was the beginning period of my life in Lebanon. So I was thinking about crossing the Middle East Sea to Europe, or how can I ask United Nations to resettlement me in foreign countries. But I investigate that United Nations They didn't recognize me as a refugee because I am registered after 2015, and they stopped recognizing people for resettlement programs after 2015. They support me, they help me in Lebanon, but they didn't select me to travel. They only select people before 2015. So my friend said there is an organization called Talent Beyond Boundary. You can register in this organization. It's non-government organization. I opened the website of the Talent Beyond Boundary, and I saw all the video on YouTube about Talent Beyond Boundary. I saw Tariq, Dirar. I saw the idea of Talent Beyond Boundary. I like this idea because it's really amazing. But actually, in the beginning, in 2017, I feel maybe it will take time because Talent Beyond Boundary, they have many challenges to help refugees. Like what John said, sometimes the refugees doesn't have document, doesn't have proof of experience, proof of English. You know, for me, I cannot follow some Canadian immigration program because lack of some document. Also, I was living, I crossed the boundary illegally, and my passport was expired. So I face a problem with my document. So then I registered in Talent Beyond Boundary, and I start work in Lebanon, working illegally in plastic industry. You know, also I wasn't have a resident in Lebanon, so life was very difficult. In 2019, Talent Beyond Boundary called me about job opportunity in Australia. Really, I feel it was a dream because you cannot imagine. Uh, uh, I know the number of refugees in Jordan and Lebanon and Iraq, Turkish. So I feel like that how much I am lucky to get this chance. So they arranged an interview with the ceramic oxide fabricator with Peter, and Talent Beyond Boundary. They training me for the interview, and they make a prova about what normally company asking in the interview. I prepare too much for this interview. I was expecting technical question, Peter, but I saw Peter and Anna asking me about how do you accept to travel, how much your city size comparing with Bendigo, do you live in the capital in your country or away? Then after the interview, they arranged other interview. In the next interview, I said maybe they will move to technical question. So I prepare myself again. But I surprised that Peter offered me the job contract. And he said, Ali, we will send you the contract. You can accept or you cannot. I told him, of course, I will accept this contract. You cannot imagine, Peter, you changed my life at that moment. And my wife, Wala, she is sitting next to me now. She doesn't believe. Do you really said Peter offer a job contract for you today? Yes, it is. And we start the visa application process. But in that time, in 2019 in Lebanon, The situation became bad because there is a problem between people and government. Then COVID came and the lockdown started. Then the war in Beirut exploded. Again, I struggling in Lebanon for 2 years until 2022. The Australian embassy in Jordan called me to continue the visa application, and I traveled with my family, and we came to Australia in March this year. When we reached Australia, we found Mr. John and Talent Beyond Boundary team welcoming us in the airport in Melbourne, and Peter and his wife Roland did amazing job in Bendigo. They preparing the house and everything. So we came and we found we united again here. You know, we was living separately. Wala was in Syria and I was in Lebanon. So we united here because of this chance with Talent Beyond Boundary and Ceramic Oxide Fabricator. So after that, I start my work. I go to the company. I found a nice stuff there. All of them is nice and try to help you. The manager every day ask you about your life, your wife, your son, and I have ever met a manager like that before. So I am very happy in my work with ceramic oxide fabricator. I know it's a new technology for me because my last experience was in maintenance domain for rotary equipment in oil and gas industry. Then in Lebanon, I work in plastic industry, but I have the engineering background, and I think with ceramic oxide fabricator, I will learn a lot and I will improve because this company is a really nice company to care the fresh engineer and grow them. So I am very happy with this chance. Also in Bendigo, you know, Bendigo is a countryside. It's not like Melbourne or Sydney or crowded cities. It's a rural, Australian rural. We like this environment here and the people. We start building many relationships. Now we have a lot of friends. They support us and they help us, and they are very nice. One of them actually members in rural of Australia for refugees. She is Alison McLaughlin, and her husband Troy. Alison teaching my wife English, and every weekend she came with her husband, took us to visit some places here. They show us the kangaroo in Australia, and we have a lot of fun together every weekend. Yes. Also, we have Holly, the friend of Alison. She's a very nice woman. Also, she spent time with Wala in the library. Our neighbor Adrian and Lois, they are very nice. They visit my wife when I am working, so I feel happy here in Bendigo. And this is my wife.
Hello.
Hi, Wella.
My wife, Wala.
Hello.
I want to say hi
How
for
are you?
you all.
Well, it's lovely that you've both been welcomed. It sounds like that there's a lot of people that have put in a lot of energy to try and welcome you and your beautiful family. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you for you.
So I'm curious just to find out a little bit more about the relationship with TBB and Refugee Talent Australia. And I do know that we've got, I'm looking at Luna there. So I'm wondering, Luna, do you feel up to talking a little bit, or do you want to hand it to John, or what do you feel comfortable doing?
Yeah, I'll hand
putting
over.
You on the spot, haven't I? You put your camera on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm very sick with the flu, but I wanted to attend today because it's a beautiful night to be here. But I'll pass to John because he has the whole story and he has the history.
Yeah,
There's,
thanks, Luna.
a beautiful story behind it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Hopefully you'll hear from Luna maybe when we have the face-to-face. That would be great. Yeah, because Luna's got an amazing story and has been a huge asset to both Refugee Talent and Talent Beyond Boundaries. So Talent Beyond Boundaries is the difference is international versus domestic. That's it in a nutshell. So, you know, as we all know, and especially people from RAR know better than probably anyone, there are many refugees who have already made it to Australia, and one way or the other. And sometimes they're in a horrible situation where our asylum seekers find themselves in. But there are refugees who are already in Australia. And Refugee Talent is a wonderful organisation that was born by a Syrian refugee himself, Narari Dacho, and a lady, Anna Robson, who worked on Nauru. And that completely changed her life, and she was very tough when she came off Nauru, deciding that she would dedicate the rest of her life to refugees. And Narari and Anna got together and formed Refugee Talent to help refugees who were already in Australia, but were struggling. You come to Australia, maybe you come in the humanitarian way. It's really, really hard to get started. You come here, you don't have connections, and organisations like RAR do all they can, but it's still tough. So Narari was a tech guy. He's a techie, a highly qualified techie, and he put together technology that's behind the Refugee Talent technical solution to help, kind of like a Seek, if you know Seek, but kind of like a Seek for refugees in Australia. Because refugees just going on to Seek, you might think, well, if a refugee's already here, why can't they just put their skills into Seek and away you go? Well, that's what Narari Dacho tried as someone, a highly skilled tech, and it didn't work for him, and it doesn't work for refugees. Refugees have special challenges, even once they're here. And actually Luna has had exactly, and Luna's husband, have had exactly the same experience. It's tough. So Refugee Talent was created to sort of help people who are already in Australia to get that first step, that first job, and start so they can start rebuilding their lives. When I was wandering around in 2016 with this idea, I was referred to Refugee Talent, who'd already existed. And I met Anna, and it was love at first sight. And since that point, it was just really me and Anna together. And when I said, look, what if I take what you're doing, but I add an international dimension to it? Because you're helping employers hire refugees, skilled refugees already here. I'm looking to use the international recruitment as well. And as a techie, I got on really well with Narari, and I'd come across the Talent Beyond Boundaries. We already had a database of talent at very early days then, but Narari and I worked together to link our international database of talent with Refugee Talent's domestic database. And so all of a sudden, Refugee Talent could present to employers, not just refugees who are in Australia, Australia with skills, but also refugees that were still stranded in places like Lebanon and Jordan. So that's our model also, just to finish, that's our model more globally, because TBB, when we go to a new destination country, so like the UK or Canada, or now we're going into Europe, for example, we try and find an organisation like Refugee Talent who's already doing refugee employment domestically in that country. So they've already got the employer relationships and so on. And we just approach them and say, how about adding an international dimension to what you're already doing? So I hope that makes it clear the role of Refugee Talent and Talent Beyond Boundaries.
Yeah, that's a great summary. It's such a wonderful, beautiful success story. It's just lovely. I'm very conscious of the time. I feel like we could just keep talking and talking, but I'd like to open it up to any questions that anyone may have, and feel free to unmute yourself and just ask. Or if you're not comfortable doing that, then please just enter something into the chat. Has anyone got a question straight off at all? Or
hello?
Oh, hello.
I love you. I love you.
Oh, thank you.
How is this Bluey?
Bluey, he likes Bluey.
Oh yes, he's becoming an Aussie kid already in 3 months. Like and Bluey, that's great. Any questions from the audience at all? I know that we do have not only Luna, we've got a couple of other people from Refugee. I think Sam is from Refugee.
Sam's from Talent Beyond Boundaries, and
TBB.
And Antonius Frangos is from Refugee Talent.
Ah, right, okay. So if anyone wanted to, Sam, I'll put you on the spotlight, haven't I?
And Sam lives in Bendigo.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Sam, because I you know, a little bit of checking out the websites, and I thought, oh, there's a Bendigo resident on the website. Sam, what's your role with TBB?
So I've got an admin role at TBB. I joined about 7 months ago.
Yep.
Funnily enough, exactly around the time that I moved to Bendigo.
So you're new to Bendigo.
New to Bendigo and fairly new to Talent Beyond Boundaries.
Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, well, welcome to Bendigo.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to know that this exists. I hope you'll keep me up to date with whatever you're doing. And
yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're one of us now, whether you like it or not.
I like it.
Yeah. Any questions for anyone? Anyone? Oh, David's got a question.
Just with John, we have a guy that has the skill set for an abattoir, as you mentioned before, that the abattoirs want him back. He was sent back because he was on a temporary protection visa, and they decided he wasn't required here, but the abattoirs are still very, very keen to get him back. He's been 3 years back in Pakistan. He has Australian qualifications here for his meat industry qualifications, and we're talking to him today. He's just so keen to come back. Do your organisation, do we need to be fit into that pool that you talk about, or are we able to use the system you have to provide access for him to this workplace?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, we have a special pilot system which actually streamlines the visa process, David. But actually, as I said earlier, that we don't actually have any more slots at the moment, but next year we will. And also, employers have to be. Talent Beyond Boundaries is regarded by Department of Home Affairs as a trusted partner, and the trust part comes in as we have to endorse companies. So there's a sort of so the way this would work, it could work, David. So this is definitely possible. What should happen is the employer, namely the abattoir, should approach us and Talent Beyond Boundaries, and with the situation, and say we probably won't be able to do anything for them this year, but certainly next year is something we could actually start thinking about it. But we would have to endorse the employer. So and really we're looking, obviously the obvious thing is, we're looking, are people being paid correctly? Are they, is the company a sort of reputable company and so on, which it sounds like they are. So, but there is that endorsement process. So that's how it works. Having said that, the company could try and just bring this person in on a normal temporary skilled visa, as they presumably did before. So that avenue is always open. Our model is perhaps a bit more, has got some additional advantages, but is there any reason, David, why they didn't, why they wouldn't just sort of apply for another temporary visa for the person?
Well, they're willing to do that. It's getting their agent to do that, they're snowed under trying to get talent for the meat industry is very short of workers.
Yeah.
I'm part of the Swan Hill group, and we're mainly talking with rural industries that are just so short of talent, and the refugees are the ones that are prepared to do the work that a lot of Aussies won't do, and like picking fruit and processing meat, and it's just an ongoing problem.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we don't see us as a form of cheap labour or anything like that. So and we are mainly skilled. We're not really there to provide unskilled labour. If you do that, we do get there's issues with that, political and union issues and all sorts of issues. So having said that, we have got people, and some of that person you saw, one of the people you saw speaking on the video actually works for an abattoir in West Australia, a regional abattoir in West Australia. But he's a skilled meat worker, third generation. So not cheap labour, a skilled person, but nevertheless employed by the abattoir industry. And that company, Harvey Beef, has actually come back and since have been hiring large numbers of people through us. So that is an industry that we do look at.
Well, this guy worked here for close to 5 years.
Yeah,
the abattoir.
Yeah, look, that's all gonna be to his advantage.
Yeah, and the abattoir is registered as a one of those that can bring in. They're allowed to bring in 150 people over 3 years and that sort of thing. So they're registered in that way. And it's a.
Well, maybe at the moment, I don't think we're not going to make it any easier right now.
No.
Maybe next year we would, but but they should feel free to reach out to us.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Any other questions from anybody? Not seeing any hands raised or anything, nothing in the chat, Eve. So, okay, I'm conscious of the time. So I might just throw to John, Peter and Ali to see if they had any final words that they would like to share, anything that final message that you wanted to get across to our audience, if there's anything. And don't feel pressured, but Peter's got his hand up.
Look, I just think this is wonderful. Thank you, John. It's been tremendous. The investment's worthwhile. It really is worthwhile, especially for skilled labour, because I'm looking at the skills that Ali's got, and I see him growing into the organisation and evolving into a leadership role. So I'm very excited to see how Ali develops. So this is really a wonderful scheme. And lastly, I can see why you interviewed me so heavily if you're seeking out Mr. Dutton's trust.
Ali, going to say something, it'd be good for you to, any final words?
Yes, actually, first I want to thank you to allow me to speak today. And I want to say thanks for Mr. John, because there is something I didn't tell you about. Mr. John gave me a loan. I was in Lebanon from Cameron Foundation, and by this loan, I booked for my father and my mother, and they came to Lebanon, and I meet them for 10 days, and I say goodbye for them. Then I book for Wala and Mayar. So I want to say thanks for John for this idea. And I want to mention it, that he now create a pathway club. It's also an organization to support refugees who is waiting the travel day. Because I remember this situation was very bad, especially that the 2 years pandemic years, and the situation in Lebanon was very bad. So I was stuck in money. So this loan helped me too much. Also, I want to, I wish that all countries support Talent Beyond Boundary, not only Australia and Canada and England, and companies to sponsor refugees, because there are a lot of refugees living in very difficult situation, especially in Lebanon, because the Lebanon economic state is very bad. So I hope that more companies do what ceramic oxide fabricator did, and select their worker with Talent Beyond Boundary to help more refugees. And thank you again. Thank you, Peter, because you changed my life by selecting me and sponsoring me with my family to came here to Australia together. Thank you. And this is my wife. Also want to say
thank you
for Peter and for John,
for Peter and
everyone.
Look, I can't say any more than that. I think that's a great way to end. Actually, I couldn't really add to that, other than to say that to emphasize that it's not charity, right? I mean, obviously Ali and Wala are grateful, but
thank you, John.
This is not charity, right? These are skills, and that's an important thing, and that's what gets it over the line with the likes of the Peter Duttons of this world. This is good economics. So tell employers, not that this is something, this is this great charity you should give to. Tell employers that this is a great pool of talent that you'd be crazy to ignore.
Fabulous. Thank you. On that note, on behalf of the Rural Australians for Refugees Bendigo, I'd like to thank John, Peter and Ali for generously sharing your stories and giving us your time this evening. And it has been a beautiful message for World Refugee Day. It is one of absolute inspiration. It's beautiful. And hopefully you can come and see, and maybe Luna as well, a live event here in Bendigo. So we will keep you posted. And if you do want to access a recording of this evening to share with anyone and you're not on our distribution list, please email through to rarbendigo@gmail.com and I'll make sure that you get a copy of that. And thank you, everyone, very much. I'm really grateful for your attendance tonight, and hope to see all your faces again soon. Thank you.